If you feel scared while you're dreaming, stay in that dream. If the fear ignites your skin, wrapping around your throat while you blissfully dream, stay asleep. If you hear a noise that wakes you up out of your control, keep your eyes closed. If you hear footsteps that you can't place, keep your eyes closed. If you feel something touch you, no matter what it feels like, keep your eyes closed. If something speaks to you, even if you recognize its voice, keep your eyes closed. Closed eyes until the crest of the sun shines through the window. I have had these words ingrained on my mind for the last few days, since I awoke to my worst nightmare realized. My beloved Bobby, my perfect, kind, sweet fiancé, who never hurt a fly. My wonderful Bobby laying next to me, eyes open in terror, mouth fully opened in a silent scream, staring at the ceiling. I screamed when I awoke to him and saw his state. I cried and checked his pulse, crying out his name for him to come back to me. Bobby, Bobby, wake up. Don't leave me, please, don't leave me here alone. I sobbed. Once the police had come and asked me a million questions, and the coroner had collected his body, the police asked me one more thing. Is there a camera? The officer asked me. We have one in the living room that faces the kitchen. It's wired to our phones. I responded, wiping my tears with my shirt sleeve. We will be needing access to that. He said, clicking his pen away, just to check on some things. You mean, to check if I somehow killed him with something from the kitchen? I asked, rage filling my eyes. We have to rule it out, miss. Don't take it personally, he grumbled. Once the officers had cleared out of our home, he turned to me once more. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry for your loss, he said with a frown. Then he was gone. I couldn't sleep a wink the next night. After calling everyone we knew and delivering the bad news over and over while fielding questions I couldn't answer, I was exhausted. Exhausted but wide awake. I couldn't sleep in our bed. That was our bed. I couldn't smell Bobby there. So I made myself a spot on our couch. I put on a show and tried scrolling through my phone when I saw I had a new email. It was the detective assigned to Bobby's case who asked to see the footage from last night. I sighed and opened my camera app. I exported all the footage for the last 24 hours and sent it over with a highly unsatisfying whoosh. I couldn't bring myself to look at it. I couldn't see us cuddled up on the couch together, laughing while watching a movie. I couldn't take more pain. Once the tears began to flow again, I locked my phone screen and left it on the coffee table. I tossed and turned for what felt like hours until I finally drifted off. I dreamt of me sitting in a lonely bus station. I seemed to have no destination as I watched people get on and off their buses and go on their way. I sat still, watching the passengers, when I felt the hair on the back of my neck rise. I turned around and found no one watching me. Actually, the station in my dream had emptied, but the feeling had stayed. I kept looking backwards, looking for the cause of my paranoia, when the color of the bench I was sitting on turned from blue to pink. Oh, I'm dreaming. I watched the colors and wished I could say goodbye to Bobby. When my cell phone rang, it was apparently in my pocket, and I held it up to my ear. I hit answer, but the phone continued to ring loudly. Hello? Hello? I hear muffled words through the dream phone. And a familiar voice. Bobby? Bobby? I asked in a new panic. His voice was muffled, mixed with static and the ringing, but I could make out a few words. Don't wake, close eyes! The ringing from my phone grew louder and louder, and I felt myself waking up. Why? I screamed into the phone. It's not me. I feel myself fading more and more from the dream. What's not you? I scream. It's waiting. My eyes shot open. In my delirious state, I looked around my dark house, then at my coffee table, which held my traitorous phone, ringing loudly. My brother calling me back after his night shift. I swiped the call to answer and run my hands through my hair. Hey Jay, I mumble. After another tearful call, I put my phone back and lay down on the couch again, putting my hands over my face, sighing deeply. Then I hear it, a soft clink of glass. I freeze, hands still over my face, covering my eyes. Another soft clink. My breathing turns harder, and I know my hands have started to tremble. I then hear footsteps walking towards me, a low growl emitting from the direction of my kitchen. I stay frozen. Babe? Babe, are you here? Bobby? I start to cry in relief and begin to move my hands when Bobby's words from my dream haunt me. It's not me. I freeze again. Baby, there you are. It's me. Wake up, baby. Oh, I missed you. I still don't move. My dream felt so real. Maybe I am dreaming again, and if it's really Bobby, he will still be here by morning. Babe, come on. I feel cold hands grip my wrists, tugging lightly to pull them off my eyes, but I hold strong. Move your hands. Now. Bobby's voice demands. The cold hands grip me harder, trying to yank my arms down, but I hold on. That's not my Bobby. Bobby has never spoken to me coldly, and he would never grab me like this. Move them, or I will take my time with you too. His voice seethes at me, too. I'm sobbing, but I keep my eyes covered, my hands violently shake, and for hours Bobby insults me, yells at me, pleads with me, bargains with me just to move my hands. But I don't. After it was quiet for a while, I felt the warmth of the sun start to rise through our window. I shakily move my hands down and find no one there. I whimper because I wanted to be wrong. I get out a piece of paper and write down every lesson I learned that night, and that whatever this thing is, it most likely took my Bobby. I'm tucking the piece of paper into my phone case for safekeeping when I get a call from an unknown number. Hello? Hello, this is Detective Michaels. I've been working Bobby's case. A gruff voice answers. Oh yes, I'm here. Have you found anything? I ask, wrapping my blanket around my shoulders. Well, we analyzed your living room camera, and we found Bobby. He woke up at about 2 a.m. and walked to your living room. He just stood there for a few minutes facing the wall. Then he turned and went back to your room. He said. I could hear his pen scribbling something down through the phone. Okay, I tell him, willing him to keep going. And the coroner got back to me just a few minutes ago, and we can clear you off this case from their findings. What did you find? I asked timidly. Well, it appears Bobby had a type of heart attack in his sleep, he continues. A heart attack? He was perfectly healthy, I snapped, still protective over him. It wasn't a health thing, miss. It didn't go on the official report. He paused and lowered his voice into the phone. I'll tell you what the coroner told me, and she said it's just what she thinks, but she's never seen something like this before. Please tell me, I demand. She said that with how Bobby's face was, that he saw something. We don't know what, but he trailed off. But what? She says she thinks he was frightened to death. I pause. That's not possible. That's not real. That can't happen. I mutter into the phone. It can. It is rare, but not impossible. The detective corrects. I'm silent. What could Bobby have seen I can't even think it. And miss a word of advice. Detective Michael whispers. I'm silent. All I'm saying is that if my partner was scared to death right next to me and it didn't even wake me up, I would only think of one thing to do, he says, while rustling a piece of paper in the background. What's that? I ask. Move. Sell your place, go far away, and pray to whatever you believe in that it won't come looking for you next, he explains. But detective, what if it already has? I ask. He's silent for a moment. Well, then I'll start praying for you too. My parents bought the house for the isolation. Clean air, peace and quiet, my dad would say, gesturing out the panoramic living room window at the endless sea of pine and birch that surrounded our property. For me and my younger brother Leo, it just meant we had a bigger playground. We were city kids transplanted to the middle of nowhere, and the woods became our kingdom. Leo was 10, I was 17. That 7-year gap meant I was less of a brother and more of a permanent, legally mandated babysitter. But I didn't mind. He was a good kid. Quiet, imaginative, with eyes the color of a summer sky and a spray of freckles across his nose that he hated but my mom adored. The day it happened was unremarkable. The sky was the color of a dull nickel, heavy with the promise of the first big snow. I was on the porch, trying to get a bar of service on my phone, while Leo was at the edge of the woods, building one of his signature stick and moss forts. My mom called out from the kitchen, Alex, keep an eye on him. Don't let him wander too far. Got it. I yelled back, not taking my eyes off the screen. That's the part that eats me alive at night. I didn't look up. Not for 5 minutes, maybe 10. When I finally did, the edge of the woods was empty. My heart didn't just drop, it vaporized. Leo, I screamed, my voice cracking. Leo, this isn't funny. Silence. Only the soughing of the wind through the pines. We searched for 3 days. The local sheriff's department, volunteers from the nearest town, my frantic parents and me. The snow came that first night, thick and wet, blanketing everything, erasing any tracks, any hope. My dad's face aged a decade. My mom just sat in Leo's room, holding his favorite stuffed wolf, her eyes vacant. On the morning of the fourth day, as the search parties were losing steam and the cold dread of acceptance was settling over our house like a funeral shroud, he came back. He was just standing on the back porch, shivering, his jeans torn and muddy. His sky blue eyes looked huge in his pale face. My mom let out a sound I'll never forget, a ragged, tearing sob of pure relief, and crushed him in a hug. My dad was crying, I was crying. We had our miracle. At the hospital they said he was fine. Mild dehydration, a few scratches, a slight case of hypothermia. He couldn't remember anything about the 3 days he was gone. "It's like I fell asleep," he whispered, his voice hoarse. Dissociative amnesia, the doctor called it. A trauma response. It made sense. But when we got him home, the cracks started to show. It was small things at first. Things I told myself were just part of the trauma. Leo was a notoriously picky eater. He hated peas. Called them green, mushy balls of gross. The night he came back, my mom made his favorite, mac and cheese with hot dogs. She put a small scoop of peas on the side out of habit, and he ate them. All of them, without a word. When I pointed it out, he just looked at me with those wide blue eyes and said, "I like peas." He used to have a specific way he'd run down the stairs, a chaotic, thumping rhythm of heel-toe jump on the last step. Now, he descended with a silent, even gait, each foot placed deliberately. It was more efficient, I guess, but it wasn't Leo. The freckles were wrong. I know how insane that sounds. I spent hours staring at old photos on my phone. The constellation of brown specks on his face was a map I knew by heart. Now it was rearranged. A dot that should have been under his left eye was now closer to his nose. It was a forgery, a damn good one, but a forgery nonetheless. I tried to tell my parents, but they looked at me like I was losing my mind. "Alex, he's been through a trauma," my mom said, her voice strained. "Give him time. Don't make him feel weird." The real terror began at night. Our rooms were next to each other. I'd always been able to hear him, the soft snores, the rustle of him turning in his sleep. Now, there was nothing, just a profound, unnatural silence from his room. One night, a week after he returned, I couldn't take it anymore. I crept out of my bed and pushed his door open a crack. He wasn't in his bed. The blankets were pristine. I felt a surge of panic, thinking he'd wandered off again. But then I saw him. He was standing in the corner of the room, facing the wall. Perfectly still. He wasn't crying, he wasn't fidgeting, he was just standing. "Leo?" I whispered. His head turned. It didn't turn like a person's head. It rotated on his neck with a slow, fluid motion, like an owl's, his body remaining perfectly rigid. His eyes found me in the dark, and they weren't reflecting the moonlight from the window. They seemed to be faintly, dimly lit from within. And then he smiled. It wasn't Leo's smile. Leo's smile was a lopsided, goofy thing. This was a wide, symmetrical crescent that stretched his mouth too far, showing too many teeth. It was a predator's smile. The smile of something that was pretending to be a little boy. I slammed the door, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought I might vomit. I scrambled back into my bed, pulling the covers over my head like a little kid, every primal fear I've ever had roaring to life. I didn't sleep. The next morning, he was at the breakfast table, happily munching on cereal, asking me if I wanted to play video games later. He acted like nothing had happened. The trauma explanation was wearing thin, stretched to its breaking point. I started watching him. Really watching him. I saw how his eyes would follow a bird outside the window, not with childlike curiosity, but with a still, calculating intensity. I saw him pick up a beetle in the garden, cradle it gently in his palm, and then, when he thought no one was looking, slowly and methodically pull its legs off, one by one, his expression utterly blank. The breaking point came yesterday. I was looking for a photo album in the basement. My parents were in town, and Leo, or the thing I was calling Leo in my head, was upstairs in his room, being quiet. Too quiet. The basement was our storage space, clammy and smelling of damp earth and mothballs. Tucked behind a stack of old winter tires, I found it. Not the photo album. It was a pile of his clothes. The muddy, torn jeans and the t-shirt he was wearing the day he disappeared. They were caked in dried mud and something else. Something dark and flaky. And there was a smell. A coppery, sweet, rotten smell that made my stomach clench. As I held the shirt up in the dim light of the single bare bulb, something fell out of the pocket. It was a tooth. A small, milky white baby tooth. A molar. Leo had lost all his baby teeth years ago. My blood ran cold. I heard a floorboard creak upstairs. Directly above my head, it was no longer being quiet. I dropped the clothes and backed away, my eyes darting towards the stairs. I knew with a certainty that was as solid and cold as a block of ice in my gut that it knew I was down here. It knew I'd found something. The basement door at the top of the stairs creaked open. A sliver of light cut through the gloom. I didn't see anything at first, just a shadow blocking the light. "Alex?" it called down. The voice was perfect. It was Leo's voice, full of childish innocence. "Mom and Dad are home. They want you to come up for dinner." A lie. I had their Find My Phone locations pulled up on my phone. They were still 20 miles away. "I'm busy, Leo," I croaked, my voice trembling. The shadow at the top of the stairs shifted. "Don't call me that," it said, and the voice was different now. It was layered, a low guttural rumble beneath Leo's high-pitched tone, like two sounds playing at once. He didn't like it. My mind raced, looking for an escape. There was only one other way out of the basement. A small, grimy window high up on the foundation wall that led to the backyard, currently buried under a foot of snow. "What are you?" I whispered, backing towards the far wall. The thing at the top of the stairs finally moved, descending into the light of the single bulb. Its descent was wrong. It wasn't walking. It was crawling down the walls, its limbs elongating, bending at impossible angles, its joints making soft, wet, popping sounds. Its face was still Leo's, but it was pulled taut over a frame that was too large, too angular. The smile was back, wider than ever. "We are the ones who listen," it rasped, the two voices scraping against each other. "We hear the lonely children in the woods. We hear the mothers who weep for them, and we give them back what they lost." It dropped the last few feet, landing on the concrete floor in a crouch. The impact made a sound not of flesh and bone, but of something dense and hard hitting the ground. It straightened up, its form shifting and resettling, bones cracking and grinding as it tried to force itself back into the too small shape of my brother. "We just borrow the skin," it said, its face contorting. "It gets a little stretched out, but parents are so happy to see them again. They never notice." It took a step towards me, and in that moment, I saw its hands. The fingers were too long, ending not in fingernails, but in sharp, yellowed tips like shards of bone. I didn't scream. The sound was trapped in my throat. I turned and scrambled, clawing my way up a stack of storage boxes to get to the small basement window. I smashed the glass with my elbow, ignoring the searing pain as shards sliced into my arm. Behind me, I heard a terrible, wet tearing sound. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I squeezed through the narrow opening, the broken glass tearing at my clothes and skin, and burst out into the freezing night air. I ran blindly through the deep snow, away from the warm lights of my house, which no longer felt like home, but a predator's den. I didn't stop until my lungs were on fire and my legs gave out, collapsing into a snowdrift at the edge of the dark woods. As I lay there, sobbing and bleeding, I looked back at the house. A figure stood in Leo's bedroom window. It was small, silhouetted against the light. It raised a hand and gave me the special wave Leo and I always used, a goofy, three-fingered wiggle. A final, mocking message. That's when I saw them. Half buried in the snow near the tree line, where the search parties had somehow missed them. Other piles of discarded children's clothing, a small red parka, a single pink boot, a child's backpack with a faded cartoon character on it. This thing hadn't just taken Leo. It had been harvesting here for years. I don't know what to do. I'm huddled in the dark, my phone battery at 3%. I can't go back to that house. I can't call the police. What would I even tell them? They would think I'm crazy, or worse, that I hurt my own family. I'm posting this from a gas station Wi-Fi hotspot 10 miles down the road. I need to warn someone. Anyone. Don't trust the miracles. Don't trust the ones who come back from the woods. They learn from what they take, and they are so hungry. I think it knows I got away. I think it knows I know, and I think it's coming for a new skin. I've always loved hiking. The freedom of the open trails, the sound of the wind through the trees, the peace of being completely alone in the wild. It's something I'd always craved, but that summer, I was after something different. Something more. I had stumbled upon a mention of a forgotten place on some obscure hiking forum. A remote village, tucked away deep in the woods, abandoned for decades. A place where time seemed to have stopped, but not in the way you'd expect. The stories were bizarre, and people talked about it like it was a ghost town, a village where the past never fully let go. I didn't believe in ghosts, of course. I thought it was all exaggeration, but the thought of a place like that intrigued me. A village lost to time? That was the kind of adventure I was looking for. So I packed up my gear and set off to find it. The first 2 days on the trail were uneventful. The forest was dense, the trees towering high above, blocking out the sunlight. The path was narrow, often disappearing under thick undergrowth, as if the land itself didn't want to be found. I followed the faint trail, cutting through thick brush and wild terrain, until I reached a point where everything changed. On the third day, I came across something strange. It was an old rusted sign, half hidden by the overgrowth, and the text was barely legible. But I could make out one word: village. I was close. My heart skipped a beat. I pushed past the moss-covered sign and continued forward, following the trail deeper into the woods. The air grew colder, and the trees seemed to close in around me, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out to touch me. The silence was unnerving, so quiet it almost felt oppressive, like the forest was holding its breath. Hours passed, and just when I thought I might have gone off course, I saw it. The village. But it wasn't like I'd imagined. The houses were there, scattered across the clearing, but they looked wrong. Not abandoned in the way you'd expect. There was no decay, no collapse, no broken windows or rotting wood. The houses were standing, pristine, as if someone had just stopped using them one day and left everything in place. I wandered through the village, my boots crunching over the dry ground. The houses were old, the kind that looked like they should have been reclaimed by nature long ago. But no, these houses were frozen in time, untouched. The windows were dark, the doors left ajar, but there was no sign of life. It felt like a place that had been waiting for something, for someone. I entered the first house I came across. The door creaked as I pushed it open, and inside, the air was thick with dust. The furniture was all there, chairs, tables, even a couch, but it looked odd. Like it had been left in a hurry, but not in the way you'd expect from an abandoned house. It was as if the people had just stepped away for a moment and never returned. In the corner of the room was a picture frame. I approached it, curiosity gnawing at me. Inside was a photo of a family. They were smiling, happy, but as I stared at the faces, I felt a shiver run down my spine. Their smiles seemed forced, and their eyes were unsettling. Hollow, empty, like they weren't truly there. I quickly turned away and moved on, but the feeling lingered. The house was too still, too perfect. It felt like something was watching me, waiting. As I explored further, I noticed something strange. There were no sounds, no birds, no rustling of leaves. The forest outside seemed to have vanished. There was only silence. But then in that silence, I began to hear something else. It was a faint whisper. I thought it was the wind at first, but it wasn't. The whisper was too clear, too human. "Help me." The voice was faint but unmistakable. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. It sounded like it came from just beyond the doorway. But when I looked, there was no one there. Just the empty, dust-covered room. I felt the air grow colder, and that's when I saw them. At the edge of the village, near the trees, there were people. Figures. They were standing motionless, facing away from me, their bodies stiff and unmoving. At first, I thought they were statues, but as I looked closer, I could see subtle movements. Their heads turned, just slightly, as if they were aware of my presence. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I took a step back, then another, and that's when I noticed something else. Some of the figures were facing toward me. Their eyes? They were hollow, empty sockets staring straight at me, unblinking. The rest were just standing there, unmoving, but their attention was on me now. They were waiting, watching. Panic surged through me, and I turned, running through the village, trying to escape. But no matter which way I went, the figures seemed to be everywhere, closing in. Their footsteps were slow, deliberate, as if they were following a rhythm, like a hunter to its prey. I sprinted into the forest, desperate to lose them, but the trees only grew denser. the path more twisted. It felt like the woods were alive, like they were shifting around me, trapping me inside their maze. And then I saw it, an old cabin, half hidden by overgrown shrubs, standing at the edge of the forest. I ran toward it, hoping for shelter, something to hide in, but when I opened the door, I was met with an unsettling sight. A man sat inside, staring at me with those same hollow eyes. His face was pale, almost sickly, and he was motionless, frozen in place. His mouth twitched as if he was trying to speak, but no sound came out. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and pointed toward the back wall. I turned, my heart thudding in my chest, and that's when I saw it. A photograph on the wall. It was an old, faded picture of the village, but the people in the background. There was a woman standing in front of one of the houses, holding a child. The child's face was hidden in shadows, but the woman's face was clear. And it looked like me. I stumbled backward, my mind racing. How could that be? How could she look like me? And that's when I heard it again. The whisper. But this time, it wasn't just a whisper. It was a presence. A feeling, like something was crawling inside my head, pushing against my thoughts. You shouldn't have come. I tried to run, but the door slammed shut behind me. The cabin was no longer a refuge. It was part of the village, part of the trap. The walls began to close in, and the figures from the village surrounded the cabin, their empty eyes watching me. I bolted toward the door again, but it was gone. The entire cabin had shifted, become part of the village. I could hear the whispers now, louder all around me. The air grew thicker, suffocating. The walls seemed to pulse, breathing with a life of their own. And then, just as everything seemed to close in on me, I heard the voice again, this time right next to my ear. You're one of us now. The ground beneath me began to shift, and the village seemed to fold in on itself. The trees, the buildings, the very earth. I was trapped, pulled deeper into the place. A place where time had stopped, but life never truly left. And that was when I realized the worst truth of all. I wasn't just lost. I had always been lost. I had always been part of this place. Thank you guys for watching this video. Write in the comments what story you liked the most. For me, the second story was really scary. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in another video.